This is the Business Storytelling Show, a top global marketing podcast listened to in more than 100 countries, live streamed on social media, and broadcast on DBTV. Christoph Trapp chats with industry leaders to help your company tell better business stories.
Hey, business storytellers, how's everyone doing? Today we want to be talking about copyright and AI. When do I lose my copyright? When do I keep it? How much AI can I use? I use AI for all kinds of different things. I mean, we're going to take this episode, we're going to hack it up after the fact in Opus Clips. Certainly, I'm guessing I'm not going to lose my AI, my copyright for that. But what if I take this episode and I put it into some system and I say, write me an outline for an article I could write from all the cool stuff Christopher Penn today's guest has told me. Is that covered by AI? Of course, I have to edit it, right? Like, if you ever publish anything written by AI without editing it or reading it, oh my God, stop the madness. So today's guest, Christopher Penn, as I already mentioned, returns to the show. He was on the show hundreds and hundreds of episodes ago. So really glad to have him back to give us the scoop. What does AI, what's the impact when it comes to copyright of your content creation? Christopher, welcome back to the show. Where are you? Oh, see, as I said, why can't I get you on the show? Oh, it's like you don't do a show for like 3 weeks over the break. It's like you got to relearn every little bitty thing. So now I think we're back on the right side of the road. Nice to see you. And give me the overview. AI and copyright. What do people need to know and what is not worth knowing?
Sure. So I'm going to start by saying I am an AI expert. I am not a legal expert. I am not a lawyer. I cannot give legal advice. Please seek a qualified attorney in your jurisdiction for legal advice specific to your situation. And as you can tell, I've said that a lot. That I had to rehearse that. Here's the deal. When it comes to copyright AI, there's sort of two sides of the issue. There's the issues on the training data and whether AI model makers had the rights to use the training data, which is part one. And part two is the outputs of AI. Are they protected by copyright? And the answer to both hinges on one key concept, and that is the concept of a derivative work. A derivative work is any work that is derived from another work. So, for example, if I take the Mona Lisa and I put, dog ears on it, it's pretty clear that's still the Mona Lisa, right? I have made a derivative work of that. If I take a blog post that you wrote and I convert it to emoji, it is still your blog post. It is just now illegible. And so, for people who are making stuff, if you are providing the raw materials and you can demonstrate a documented chain of evidence that your stuff was the source material, then in most places, most of the time, it's generally accepted that even if AI did the summarization, it is still a derivative work as long as you can produce the evidence. So you want to have really good documentation. If, on the other hand, you are starting with something that is essentially net new, made from whole cloth by AI, then it depends on where you are in the world as to whether copyright applies to that or not. There are limited instances in the UK, India, New Zealand, China, and I believe Ireland and Hong Kong as well, where under some circumstances, machine content can be copyrighted. Everywhere else in the world, it is generally accepted that machine-made content, that's purely machine-made, cannot be copyrighted. So, for example, you go to suno.com and you make a song and say, hey, make me a Berghain techno-style song. What it produces from that cannot be copyrighted. It is not a human authored work. In the USA, one of the pivotal cases for this was a case from 2018 called Naruto versus Slater. In that case, a photographer had his camera picked up by it was a monkey or a chimpanzee or some primate that wasn't a human, and the animal took a selfie of itself. And this photo became very famous. The photographer tried to copyright it. It went to court, and the courts eventually ruled that copyright only applies to humans. And the chimpanzee was the one who did the work. The chimpanzee therefore would have the copyright, but chimpanzees are ineligible for copyright because they're not human, and therefore the work is in the public domain. And so, particularly in the United States, which is where I'm based, that's sort of the general consensus right now on AI-generated works that are purely AI-generated.
I do have a little bit of a, I don't know, allergic reaction, let's put it that way, when people are just creating stuff of everybody else's content. Like they go to Jasper or AI Writer and just say, hey, write me an article that gives the 5 top reasons why bald men are more handsome than men with hair. And it just makes up 5 reasons from who knows where. What's the uniqueness? What's the point? Why even bother? It's not going to help you stand out. I mean, is that just me, or do you slightly or completely or not at all agree with that?
That's what I would call naive prompting. So naive prompting is when you give very short instructions that do not really, they don't really help you build good content. So the way AI models work is they are prediction engines. They are probability engines. You give them a series of words as instructions, and those words, the model then looks into the knowledge it's been trained on, which in some cases is trillions and trillions of words, and then says, what are the highest probability terms that fit this set of instructions? So if you say, write me a blog post about B2B marketing, there's so few words in there that what it returns back is the highest probability content based on that very short instruction. And because it's so high probability, it's boring. It is not unique at all, because again, it's the most frequent associations with that set of instructions. It's bland. It's lacks character. If, on the other hand, you were to invest the time, and it is an investment of time, to define who your audience is, maybe build an ideal customer profile, define your writing style. Maybe you give the machine a couple 100,000 words of your writing and say, provide a quantitative and qualitative analysis of the 20 aspects of writing style from this corpus of work. And then you have that, essentially that recipe of how you write uniquely there. And then you say, let's ideate a framework for this kind of post. By the time you're done, you have a very robust set of instructions that will allow that machine to write in a style that is not machine made. So we all know in a world of this and this, let's delve into today's topic of this, right? And then you're like, oh my God, it's terrible. I earlier gave an ebook that my CEO has written, Katie Robert. It's Letters from the Corner Offices. This is a compendium of the newsletters that she writes every year that we assemble at the end of each calendar year. And I gave it styling information, all this stuff. And then I said, let's write an unhinged version of this. And I gave it a bunch of directions about what that means. And instead of, this ebook is about this and this and this and this, it came out with this. I'll just read the first sentence. Katie Robert, the marketing maestro and CEO of Just Insights, has unleashed a beast of a book that's more explosive than a caffeinated squirrel in a fireworks factory. Like, that's not bad for writing, right? That's something that I would say.
Well, however, the one keyword in there that always has to go is unleashed. Unleash, transform, unlock, all those. It's like in Delph. Oh my God. I actually one time read a book, and it was clearly written by AI, and the use of Delph was so over the top. And I told the author, I said, look, I can do a review if you want, but it's not going to be very good because it's clearly written by AI. And the overuse of Delph, and this person tried to explain to me that in British English, Delph is very common. And I'm just like, maybe it's more common than in American English, but it's not this common that every other sentence has a Delph in it. So, oh my God, just stop the madness, my friends. Now, okay, so when I use AI, and this is, I think, one thing I always talk about, and I mentioned you, is I use Claude AI, right? And the reason I started using Claude AI is because back in the day, whenever that even was, 18 months ago or whenever, 2 years ago, maybe almost, you said to me, hey, use Claude AI because you can upload your source documents, right? And then you can start from there. And that's why I really, really like Claude AI. You can also do a project, so you can actually upload, this is how I want it to sound, this is my style, et cetera, et cetera. And then I actually use it more as my typewriter than my actual brain, right? I just say, nope, not this, not this. I need my story in the front, update, update, update. And by the time I'm done, I'm usually out of credits because it takes me forever. Is that kind of how you should do it? Or, I mean, am I at least halfway there, or any other tips?
So the models you use, all of the models today, all of today's state-of-the-art models are roughly comparable. They're roughly on par. I generally still recommend Claude as the best choice for the non-technical user who wants to work with small to mid-sized documents and produce decent writing. They all require prompting that is skillful. They all require examples. They all require one of the things that every model without fail needs to be able to do is to talk things out, to reason aloud. And that way they're kind of like YouTubers and Twitch streamers, right? They got to keep talking, but it's not talking for the sake of talking. The way these models work is that every word that appears on screen becomes a part of the next prompt. This is a mechanism called attention. It was invented in 2017 by Google. I think it was Google DeepMind. And it's different than other forms of predictive text. Like you've had the experience on your phone with autocomplete where it just makes up nonsense after a while. It has a very short-term memory. In the attention mechanism, everything that you see on screen becomes a part of the next prompt. And so if the screen is filled with words that are relevant and specific to what you're trying to do, it will do better. So asking a model, hey, we're going to write out this post. You're going to write this post about this topic. First, what do you know about this topic? And it spits out a bunch of information. This is a framework at Trust Insights we call RAPEL: role, action, prime, prompt, evaluate, learn. So the role statement is, hey, you are an expert in industrial and municipal sewage. Action: today we're going to write a blog post about why you should not put certain types of toilet paper down your toilet, particularly if you have a septic system. Prime: what do you know about this topic? It will spit out between 500 and 800 words of relevant stuff. Then you continue to prime it and say, what are common mistakes people make in managing septic systems that we haven't talked about yet? And it will list more stuff that is relevant and factually specific. Then you prime it again and say, what are expert tips and tricks for sewage septic system management that we haven't talked about yet? Each of these steps in the priming step gets more information on screen, which means the model is using it to predict text better, and it gives the model a chance to sort of foam at the mouth, if you will. After that, you would introduce things like, I call them knowledge blocks, just copy paste blocks of text that says, this is what my writing style is, or this is who the target audience is, and so on and so forth. And then you get to prompt where you say, now outline the article, have it write the article, the outline, you review it, evaluate, and then say, okay, let's write the article now. All of those steps preloads that working memory with all of the relevant information and gets you such better results than just starting off saying, write me an article about this, because the model doesn't have time to talk, to think, and to put relevant stuff in its short-term memory.
Listening to you share all these insights, what I just thought of this, and I did not say this. I work with clients. None of my clients are like this. But somebody said something about, so now people don't need to hire writers anymore because they just use AI. And then they said, well, but they actually can't because clients never know what they want and they're never asking for the right thing. So it's not going to work. So I thought it was kind of funny. It kind of reminded me of what you were talking about. Now, but let's kind of shift gears a little bit. When we talk about copyright, to whom does copyright actually matter? So I'm just thinking about even my site, right? ChristopheTramp.com, which is basically now an affiliate site, right? So I make money through the clicks, through the links. I mean, even on this show now, we got some sponsored content here and there. But why does copyright matter, and who does it matter to? Does it matter to the corporate blog? Does it matter to the creator? Why is it important?
Okay, so again, not a lawyer, cannot give legal advice. Copyright gives owners of the copyright, whoever owns it, a set of fundamental rights. You have the right to reproduce the work, to make copies of it. You have the right to make derivative works of it. You have the right to distribute and make money from your works, and you have the right to perform or display the works in public. Copyright in the USA, which is where I'm based, is essentially defined as a tangible fixed expression. So that can be a blog post, a painting, a photograph, a song, something like that along those lines. And it is essentially it basically gives you exclusive rights to make money on your creation for a limited period of time. In the USA, I believe it's 70 years plus the life of the creator, something along those lines. Disney basically had it modified to protect Mickey Mouse for as long as possible. And I think it just ran out, I think last year, finally, like 100 years after Steamboat Willie. Copyright does not protect ideas, right? It does not protect concepts or systems or processes. There are things like trademarks and patents that do that to some degree, but ideas are not protected. And so it matters if you have this expression of intellectual property that you don't want other people using. So, for example, I mentioned the Trust Insights Rappel framework. That's ours. If you said, hey, well, now we have the Christoph Trapp Rappel framework, like, nope, that is our copyright. That's our intellectual property. You cannot use that without licensing it from us. And our lawyers can, do all sorts of lawyerly things to take you to court on that. That's why it matters, because it protects your right to make money on your stuff. Where AI gets messy is the models themselves are derived from other people's stuff, right? They are taken from huge corpuses of text all over the internet. The model itself is so different. If you were to open up a model inside, you would see a pile of numbers. You would not see Christoph Trapp's blog post. You would not see Christopher Penn's book in there. You would see a pile of numbers. And so the argument from tech companies is that what has been created is a transformative work. This model is nothing like the works that was used to train, and therefore it's not a derivative work. In some places in the world, that is established law. China, for example, AI models are considered transformative works, not derivative works, and not a violation of intellectual property rights. In other places, like the EU, it has been legislated, EU AI Act, that is a derivative work, that AI model makers use other people's intellectual property without their permission, and therefore, these models violate people's intellectual property rights. In the United States, it's not settled law. We've got lawsuits flying all over the place, but Dr. Crystal Laser at CSU said it'll take about 10 years for it to work its way to the courts to get to a point of settled law on this. But that's what copyright is and why it matters so much. It is your ability to protect your ideas expressed in a tangible form and make money on them.
One thing I thought about too is while you were talking is when I use Claude, I actually have instructions saying only use documents I uploaded. So I'm actually prohibiting it from going anywhere else, which is funny because sometimes I forget about that and I ask it a different question and it says, I don't see any source documents to answer this question. So it's fantastic how things evolve. Now, in your newsletter, you always make a big deal about it. And I say big deal because it's on the top, right in my face. First thing I see, this is 100% human created or 95% human created. And this one thing I did with AI. Why is that disclosure important? And who should disclose when they use AI?
Everyone should disclose when you use AI. Here's why it's important. When you disclose what is AI, you are implicitly reinforcing your copyright claims on everything that isn't. So if I say in this newsletter, this summary report was generated by Gemini, I'm saying I can't copyright that. That was made by Gemini. I can't copyright that. The rest of the newsletter is mine. You can't take it. You can't assume it's AI generated. Now, and you really want to be granular. So if you say on this blog post has an image that was generated by AI, by humans wrote the rest. So yeah, you can copy paste the image because it can't be protected under copyright law. You absolutely may not copy paste my blog post. So that's the importance of declaring and disclosing where you use AI in very specific granular ways.
Yeah, it's so interesting how things evolve and what we can do with them moving forward. Do you think though when you disclaim it on a blog, does that distract from the message, or is it just it's important that people know, or will it turn into one of those things like the disclaimers? Trap Digital might make money. I mean, hopefully everybody sees that it's right on the top, But I also know people just skim over it because they want to get to the article. So at what point does it lose effect, or maybe it won't?
It doesn't lose effect. It is legal protection. It is exactly the same as your disclaimer that is aligned with FTC guidelines to say, hey, this is affiliate stuff. I'm making money on this. I'm declaring a conflict of interest. 99.9% of the time, the audience doesn't care. What you are doing is legally protecting yourself so that if someone were to say, well, hey, you got a conflict of interest here, I want to sue you, even if the lawsuit is baseless, it still costs you money to hire a lawyer. By having those disclaimers in place, it provides upfront legal protection. It makes it easier and faster for a judge to throw out the case. Like, yeah, dummy, you didn't read the warning signs on there. That's an important part. The other thing is there was a study from the fall of 2023, which is now like ancient history, but still I think reasonably good because it was well designed, from MIT Sloan School of Management, which said that when consumers were given examples of AI generated versus human generated content, both advertisements and persuasive pieces that were labeled, the humans did not downrate AI content. And for the group that was not labeled, the humans preferred the AI content.
It's very interesting. So sometimes I take content and I run it through written content. I run it through an AI checker or whatever. And maybe like in a minute here or so, tell us how can those even work? Because there's times I write stuff through that I know is written 100% by a human, and it will still say, this is AI, this is AI, this is AI, blah, blah, blah. And sometimes you run an AI thing through there and it says human written. So like, what the heck is going on?
AI checkers are worthless. Never use them. They are worthless. As an example, I put the Declaration of Independence through the top ranking tool on when you do a Google search for AI checkers, and it said this is 97% AI generated. Like, sure. I put Federalist Paper number 8 by Alexander Hamilton through it, and I said, I don't care how good Lin-Manuel Miranda is, that is not AI generated. It was like 72% AI generated. Those tools are worthless, and more important, they're dangerous because they can have you falsely accuse people. Never ever use them.
Your example is way better than my example of running something through there that I know was written by a human and wasn't. I mean, crazy. The Declaration of Independence, clearly not AI generated. Oh my goodness. Really nice to see you on the show. Last 80 seconds here. So tell us, who should reach out to you? Who's your perfect client, so to speak?
We like to work with anybody who wants to make more of their data analytics and AI efforts. So if you're struggling with making AI work for you, hit us up. Go to trustinsights.ai.
Fantastic. Nice to see you, and we're out.
Thanks for tuning in. Please rate and review the Business Storytelling Show